This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
So this week, Parshas Terumah, it's also we commence the Chodesh Adar. This was Emes, I said by Shalsholis, Morish Goch with invitation by the Bima. Very important. What's Adar about? I'll never forget the Vart that Rabbi Yosef Elephant once said back in the Mir days. He often quotes the Sfas Emes that says, Adar isn't just another month, it's just another Tkufa. Hashem says, which refers to me, Dar. Dar in Aramaic means I'm going to live. Ani, I, Dar, I'm coming into your midst. And after we went through the Choshech, and we went through Chanukah and all the Yom Tovim, we're coming to a time of what's the light, what's the licht, what's the excitement of Adar? Hadar Kiblu Mahava, Torah, Night Seder, Shachris, Torah, First Seder, whenever we can chop in, this is the month, this is the time. Happens to be anecdotally this morning, at a rough morning, and I think it's important to just share, because every instance, everything that we can add on to we can talk afterwards of where we others mysterious nefesh. But I had a long shopping morning and I couldn't get out, and I missed my first Seder Chavus. It was late, and I have a far drive to him. And the Yitzhahar immediately took me by the shirt collar and he said, "Wait, you ready so late? By the time you get there, you may be going to have an hour to learn." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not going to go. I'll just start my day. I'll go to the next thing." And I'm like, "Absolutely not. There's no chance. I know he's holding me by the neck, and today's the day of Hadar Kiblu Mahava. And if there's any opportunity, if there's any time to retaliate, to fight back, it's going to be today." And I went, I sat, and I learned, and I felt like a melech afterwards. And where does that cleansing, where does that process, how does that happen? It's in those instances. This isn't just, it's not for Gaiva, it's just Metzias. This is the way Hashem created the world. And when we give up, when we plug in, when we feel, we're not feeling just something external, we're not feeling something unusual, something unique. When we do these things for Hashem and we tap into Hadar Kibul Mahava, we're feeling Hashem. Adar. Hashem is in our midst. That's why, as the Rav, one of the Rabbanim we quoted in the other shul today, he said the famous halacha of Adar, when you have a din Torah, it's a suitable time that you should try to make those dinei Torah in Adar, because there's a special mazel, there's a special siyata d'shmaya, there's a special supervision that Hashem provides during this month, and it's real, and it's our avodah to step into, not just on Purim, not just derech the avodah of getting drunk on Purim, but the entire Adar is the Haibin is an uplifted time, goes into Pesach, segues to the rest of the year, to Shavuos, real Kabbalah Torah. So, having said that, let's discuss. It's no coincidence, the juxtaposition, the connection, Parshas Terumah and Adar, Hadar Kibul Mahava. And I want to preface the thought of this week with something that happened this week. I was in a discussion with someone, a very well-to-do guy, Gentile, non-Jew, what do you want to call him? Very high position, high-powered. I was talking to him, and he was telling me a little bit about his experiences in work, in his career, and really successful. He built companies, and he was CEO, and a COO, and CFO, and management, and he built huge companies. Tremendously successful person, and he's professor out in the Midwest. Amazing person, done a lot. Really kind, nice person. I said, "Wow, just sounds incredible, sounds amazing." And he said, "I want to just be honest with you." He's like, "As amazing as it sounds, like nothing is always as picture perfect as it seems." And he was open and vulnerable with me. And he said, "I want to let you know." He said, "A couple of years ago, there was a company that I worked for, and I killed it." He said, "I was killing it in sales, and I bought the company to levels that they've never ever dreamed of." Said June time that they were supposed to renew their contract, and it wasn't even like a shayla. There was no question. Like, of course he's coming back. He's leading dozens and dozens and dozens of people and teams and a huge operation, and he's just every day it's just success and great. You're doing awesome and just amazing situation. June comes, and the day that the renewal contract was supposed to happen came and went. And he was like very unsettled inside, obviously, and he was very surprised. And then the next day passed, and he thought maybe some type of fluke. And then he's like, you know what, I'm just going to get on the phone with the CEO, calls him up, and he says, I don't know if it was, the summer's coming, vacation, maybe there was some type of oversight, but what's the story? Where's my, are we renewing? And he says, well, I'll be honest with you, you've done great with us, but we're not renewing. Took a deep breath. He didn't know how to process it, and this is a guy, okay? And he tells me that his immediate reaction was to just explode in pain, in agony, in just complete rejection. And he said he hung up the phone. He went home to his wife. And he told his wife. And he said, instead of responding with anger and resent, and this is from a guy, okay? Chachma b'goyim tamim. And this is just unbelievable. He said, I told my wife, I know there's a God. He said, I know Ecclesiastes, Eicha. And he said, I know L'chol zman ve'es. He said this. I know there's a time and place for everything. There's the ups, there's the downs, waxing, waning. And he said, I told my wife, let's go on a vacation. Let's pack up our RV. Let's take a week trip down. It was July 7th. It went down to some beautiful, I forgot which lake, which ocean, with his family and his kids. And he said he had the most amazing, incredible vacation with his wife, his kids, relaxed. And I said, wow. And I said, I couldn't believe it, just hearing it from him. He quoted that pasuk in Eicha. And I said, but what gave you, let's focus on this again. You're not a yid, you didn't learn Chovos HaLevavos, you didn't learn Beis HaLevim and B'tachon. What gave you that courage? What gave you that certainty, that conviction that everything's going to be fine? And he said, I'll tell you again. He said it's that pasuk. He said it's that verse in Ecclesiastes. There's a time and place for everything. He said, I believe that. I know God has a plan. I know He cares the most about me. He's from a guy. And then he quoted the pasuk from David HaMelech. Gam ki evich begeitz hamaves lo yirara ki atayimad, he said. Even when you're going into places of darkness, begetz hamaves, it's dark, it's gloomy, there's anxiety and fear, lo yirara, don't panic. He said, because God is with me. And this is a guy, and this was his approach, and it hit me. It hit me. That if this guy living in Missouri, beautiful man, beautiful perspective, if this is his mabat, this is his outlook on life, this is how he's approaching what many of us would crumble, would fall to despondency, to sadness, maybe to depression. I was this high operating guy in a company and I didn't get renewed, and just was able to go to his family, spend quality time with his wife and kids, and say, God has a plan. I know there's ups and downs, and this is just part of life. And I'm going to accept it. I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to make the best out of it. And instead of getting in bed and just sleeping through and waiting for something to come up, he spent quality, beautiful time that he made lasting memories. And that's what he gave over to his family. That's what he gave over to himself. What does that have to do with us? What does that have to do with Parshas Terumah? It's everything. V'ikchuli Terumah, says in the pasuk. V'ikchuli Terumah. The pasuk says, Hashem says you should take a Terumah, which is a tithe. Okay? An astounding medrash. The medrash says, Yesh l'cha adam loikeach mekach uvnei adam eni yodei. We know, all the Mefarshim talk about this, that Terumah, when we're talking about the Torah, we're talking about being mafresh Terumah, and we're talking about the Mizbeach, we know that it's talking about Torah, and that we have to make ourselves into a vessel, into a receptacle, kli for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But it says the medrash, so what's the mus over here, what's the message? That there's sometimes a person who buys something, an acquisition, and people don't know what the value is. He doesn't know what the value is. The buyer, the seller, they don't know. The same thing. Just like an acquisition, you can buy something, and you don't know what it is. So too says the Medrash, the Torah is the same thing. Nobody knows really what its value is. Nobody knows how much it's worth. Moshe Ben himself didn't know. As we say in the end of the Torah, there was some sort of radiance that permeated, and he wasn't able to see what the Torah is really worth, because the Torah is Hashem's manifestation. It's Hashem's Shekhinah. It's His stakel baraisu bara al. Hashem looked in the Torah and created the world. So we can't know the erech, we can't know the value of the Torah. That's what the Medrash says. Asks Rav Gedalia Shor in Or Gedalia, a very simple kasha. He says, I don't understand. Like, this is a medrash over here, and it's giving us this obscure mashal that the Torah is compared to a person who buys an acquisition and he doesn't know the value of it. Like, why can't you say you don't know the value of the Torah finished? But what's this very practical, realistic mashal? A person doesn't know. He's buying a can of Dr. Pepper and he doesn't know maybe it's silver, maybe it's worth $100,000. What's the message of the medrash? What's it trying to convey? And says of Gedalia Shor, the Yisod is, he quotes the Gemara in Bava Metzia, it's a in Bava Metzia. What he says is, the halacha is that if you have two people, you have one person, we'll call him the buyer. The buyer buys a sheet of metal, and he has no idea. He wants to use it for his roof. Put a sheet of metal under the roof, and he's like, you know what? I'm moving. I'm not using it anyway, and he sells it to Shimon. Shimon now has this sheet of metal, and then Shimon finds out that this isn't a sheet of metal; it's a sheet of silver, and it's taka worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. What's the halacha? The halacha of the Gemara says is it's a kinyan me'ula, lekach tov. It's a proper, approved transaction. And Shimon owns this piece of metal. Reuven says, what do you mean? I didn't know what I sold you. Teretz is, the halacha is that you cannot be gamar dasu makna. You can't acquire something to someone else if you don't know what its value is. And since all you know, Reuven, all he knew was that it was worth $1, he thought it was a sheet of metal, or $10, $100, but he didn't think it was a piece of silver. So he was gamor makne, a piece of metal, but a piece of silver. He never knew that, he didn't know he possessed it, and that was the mekach, and it's chal. Says Or Gedalia, it's the same exact thing with the Torah. In order for a yid, we can't get the true value of the Torah, because there was a Karan Or. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know the exact value. But for a yid to tap in, for a yid to be cognizant and to realize what we possess, and the Torah is telling us that we all have to become a Mizbeach Hazav, and we have to be mafri, we have to take Terumah and turn ourselves into that receptacle kli. We have to realize what it is that we possess and work throughout life to enhance, to enrich, to fully develop as much as we can what is at our disposal. And every year, and every Parshas Terumah, and every Adar, and Pesach, and Shavuos, when we talk about it, and when we learn the Torah more, and we do more Torah, mitzvahs and avodah, where is it going? What's it doing? Aside from all the schar we're getting and engaging in the Torah mitzvahs, we're getting something much more fundamental. And that's the erech, it's the value, it's the understanding, the recognition of what the Torah is itself. How it enhances our lives, how we're able to connect to God, how we're able to see Hashem even during trying, bleak, uncertain situations. And the more we tap into it, and the more it's mechazek our emunah and our bitachon, and we learn the psukim and the gemaras and the chazals and the halach, and we see how everything is just a beautiful tapestry of Hashem's mind, of the divine knowledge. The more and more that we pack that away, that we make it part of our lives, not only are we getting schar Talmud Torah, but we are enhancing our erech for the Torah itself, the acquisition that is in our hands, that Hashem said through the Torah, that you were chosen, the Am Nivchar Nasav Nishma. We become different, we are elevated, we're different mahos, as the Kuzari says. The Yid is the highest level. So if a guy could realize whatever situations I was going through, again, what's the whole Adar about? What's Purim about? It's all about Hester. It's all about realizing that from back of the curtain, Machari Pargud, there's an Eibishter. There's Hashem. There's a divine mandate. And Hashem is pulling the strings. And if a guy can realize that, and he can realize that when he gets spit in the face, he gets punched in the gut, and he can realize that it's all Hashem. I'm going to channel all the ill will that I harbor towards the CEO and realize it's not him. It's Eicha. The Chozman Beis. It's David HaMelech. It's Lo Yira Ki Atoy Madi. And Hashem's going to make it good. And Hashem can make anything turn around. Yeshua Hashem Karaf Ayin. And Hashem is from behind the curtain, just like he was Migdal Esther. The more we learn the Torah, the more we tap into it and make it real, we realize, make it become a reality, then it becomes part of our life. We get this charfa, but we have much more than that. We have the Eibishter himself. We work on realizing the real estate the karka, not just karka, but the Eibishter himself is in our hands, and we tap into that. We realize how much we have. We realize we have everything. That's the Yesod. That's what Hashem says, Vikchuli Terumah, take for yourself a tithe. It's not just some abstract thing. The Medrash is telling you, black and white. It's just like an acquisition. And if you have a can of Dr. Pepper, before you sell it away, make sure that there's no silver inside, because once you give it away, it's over. And it's the same thing with the Kadosh Baruch Hu relationship. Work on it, because eventually it's going to be too late. Time is too short to waste on frivolities, on stupidities, on narishkeiten. And while you have the opportunities, through the Parshas, the Yom Tovim, Vikchuli Terumahs, take, just like an acquisition, and work on it, and enhance and enrich that, and make it real. And then, what seems to be a lofty level, that a guy can take a big spit in the face, a blow from a CEO, and not get rehired. He can say, no, the Chol Zman V'eis. He can say, Hashem's with me, even in those dark times, because Hashem's going to bring me to the greener pastures. And Kol Man Da'av Rachman L'Tavavit. This is the season, Purim is the time, the season of realizing there's Hastaras Panim, but realizing Hashem is always behind the curtain, realizing Hashem is always pulling the strings. And we should, Be'ezer Hashem, use the time to really work on ourselves as a Chidim, as a Chabura, learn more Torah, Vikchuli Terumah, take more Torah, take more Avodah, take more opportunities of mitzvahs, of da'wah, whatever it is. Use that to elevate ourselves, and ultimately to be able to live with the Eibishter, to tap into Hashem's constant hashgacha, and always be able to see the Yad Hashem in all situations, and always be able to say, Kol Man Da'av Rachmana, Tav Ovid, Gamzul Teva, we should be Zeiche, to Yeshuas, and Nisim, and ultimately with the ultimate Geula, the rival of Sheikh Tzedkeinu, B'meir V'menu, Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.